Hi everyone and welcome back. I've been getting a lot of questions about financial freedom and getting started with investments, so I thought that we could address those topics today. I thought that we could start off by looking at the ground reality and seeing how Indian families have traditionally managed their wealth and some of the pitfalls of the traditional Indian approach. I recently came across this really great and in-depth report by the Housing Finance Committee of the RBI, which worked on a report about Indian household finances. Basically, this report tries to compare Indian household financial markets with those all around the world and to see how the asset allocation for Indian households deviates from what we might call desirable or ideal. Based on this, today we're going to talk about 3 financial mistakes that Indian families or households make and how we can avoid them. The first deviation that this report talks about is the over-reliance on physical assets in India, or if you want to put it simply, we seem to love to put all our eggs in one basket. According to this report, the average Indian household holds 84% of their wealth in real estate and physical goods, 11% in gold, and just the residual 5% in financial products and assets. In last week's video, we spoke about how real estate can be a non-liquid asset. That is, it's not so easy to convert real estate into cash quickly. So just imagine how hard things could get for someone who has the vast majority of their wealth in non-liquid assets like real estate. In the event of an emergency, while your wealth is maintained on paper, you may actually have cash flow problems because of the non-liquid nature of these assets. So how do we work around this problem and make sure that we avoid pitfalls like this? The answer, of course, is having a balanced asset allocation and diversifying your investments across different financial products and different types of assets. The exact allocation of your portfolio can depend on a number of things, such as your goals, the amount of time you'd like to stay invested for, and also importantly, your appetite towards risk, because as we know, risk and return go hand in hand. There are, of course, a number of thumb rules that you can use to make this asset allocation process easier. The most common one is the 100 minus your age rule. It's pretty self-explanatory. You subtract your age from 100 to get the allocation of equity in your portfolio. The logic here is that equity tends to be a higher risk, higher return investment than, say, debt-based products. So if you are younger, you have a higher appetite for risk and a longer time horizon for which you can stay invested, which should work to your advantage. This is, however, a very basic rule, and your portfolio or asset allocation cannot be static through your life, and it's something that you have to keep working on. The next mistake that this report talks about is bad debt management. The report shows that Indians tend to borrow later in life as compared to people from other countries and therefore are more likely to reach retirement age with positive debt balances. Considering the high allocation of real estate in wealth that we spoke about earlier, it is possible that a large amount of this debt is going towards creating that one family property. The report also points out that debt like this can lead to intergenerational liabilities where the next generation has to take up the debt servicing. The next important point here is the high proportion of unsecured and informal debt that Indian households tend to take. This can be seen by the comparatively huge amount of unsecured debt exposure that Indian households take on as compared to households from other parts of the world. Amazingly, unsecured debt accounted for 2/3 of the liabilities of the very poor households and also 1/3 of the liabilities of rich households. In this context, unsecured and informal loans tend to come from money lenders, or as a lot of Indian businesses might tell you, borrowing from the industry or market. Another important point brought up with regards to debt is that there is a strong negative correlation between people buying insurance and their exposure to such unsecured and informal debt. Basically, the average Indian household tends to be underinsured and in times of emergencies is then forced to take such unsecured or informal loans to make up for a cash crunch. Further, these unsecured and informal loans tend to be priced higher and therefore place a larger interest burden on households. The way to avoid this pitfall, of course, is better debt management, which can come through taking debts only when it is needed or if you are investing to increase your potential income. Another way to avoid unsecured loans, of course, is to create assets through the course of your life that you can borrow against in case of an emergency. Now, let's talk about the third mistake which Indian households tend to make, which is the lack of retirement planning. This report states that the near total absence of pension wealth is actually unique to the Indian financial landscape. We can see this lack of retirement planning in data taken from a national household survey. This survey shows that a large amount of families believe that they cannot afford any retirement or have not spent much time planning their own retirement. Further, this data also suggests that over 50% of families view their children as their primary source of funds after retiring. Once again, due to the large proportion of real estate and physical assets in people's wealth, this creates a sort of informal system where the older generation passes down a property that they've probably spent their entire life creating and in return benefit from their children's care and monetary support during their old age. Of course, another important side effect of this is that a large amount of India's wealth gets locked generationally in real estate, which is an illiquid asset. This pitfall can, of course, be avoided by prudent retirement planning and an emphasis on passive income. If you spend a substantial part of your financial life creating a portfolio that is balanced in asset allocation and in terms of risk, return, and liquidity, you will be able to have prudent retirement plans without worrying about your wealth being locked in a particular place. This committee also made recommendations based on these findings to improve the financial outlook of Indian households and maybe also shift their asset allocation. One of these suggestions was to equip Indian households with a basic personal finance kit. This kit would include some basic things such as a no-frills bank account, simple term life insurance, and an NPS or National Pension Scheme account. The idea here is to provide the Indian households with a basic list of financial products by default, after which they can opt in or choose to be educated about more complex products. Alright everyone, I hope that this video gave you an idea of the ground reality of investment and wealth creation in India and some potential pitfalls that you should try to avoid in your own journey. It is our responsibility as the next generation to improve on these financial practices and make more prudent wealth creation decisions in the long term. If you enjoyed this content, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.